Hi everyone, welcome back to Saying It Like It Is, Peter Du Toit and Rob Moore. And this time we're going to say it like it is on the African Super League, the proposed African Super League. Before we start, guys, please don't forget, press like and subscribe. Your support is vital to us and we really appreciate it and grateful for it. Right, let's background to the African Super League. Obviously, in Africa, we've got our own local leagues, the PSL in South Africa and so on. And then we've got the two kind of continental trophies, the Champions League and then the Confederation Trophy. In Europe, they tried the Super League. It didn't work. What's happening right now, being led by ex-Mamelodi Sundowns chairman, Patrice Motsepe, now head of CAF. The proposal is that it's going to be a 24-team regional Super League with, I think, 3 leagues of 8, and then going into a knockout stage, and eventually turn into a continental league. Now, Rob, I know you're very pro this, and you see this as a savior for African football. I'm not so sure if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but let's hear your reasons why. Because this is something that's going to affect Africa. It's going to change African football overnight, good or bad.
Yeah, Peter, I think that Africa is a big continent. It's also Europe for European clubs. It can be a complicated place to do business. Quite sort of daunting because a lot of unknowns and a lot of things just spring up in the middle of transactions, and it's not straightforward. But likewise in South America, it's also quite a daunting thing. But the reason why I think that, particularly for Southern Africa, so far away from Europe, if we're looking at saying, how do we get a better national team? How do we improve our players? Well, players have to go and ply their trade day in and day out at the highest possible level. And obviously that means at other leagues in other countries, and most times that would be somewhere in Europe. So how do we create a people-friendly shop window? Somewhere where quality is concentrated, and therefore it makes it easier to scout and to go and identify talent. And where you're playing strength versus strength. You're playing quality against quality as much as possible. And that's why I say Super League, African Super League. Now, not at the expense of the local league. I'm not saying...
Because how can it not be at the expense of the local league when suddenly, Rob, instead of Chiefs playing SuperSport being or playing Amazulu being a big game, the big game now is Chiefs playing the top team from and Pirates and Sundowns playing the top teams from the rest of Africa. It's certainly going to, besides them playing each other in the PSL, it's certainly going to bring down the value of Mamelodi Sundowns versus Chipper, or Pirates versus Richards Bay. Surely your fans are going to go, okay, the biggest league is the Super League, so we're more interested when Chiefs are playing on TV and Pirates are playing on TV against Al Ahly and Raja Casablanca. Surely it just relegates all the other teams into the so-called, almost like a second division.
Yeah, but Peter, look at the Champions League now, for example, in Europe. Bayern Munich play in the Champions League. That doesn't mean to say that their local matches are suddenly suffering crowd support. Not at all. Manchester City, same type of story. I think actually in some ways the reverse could be applicable, because you've piqued somebody's interest that, wow, Kaizer Chiefs or whoever it is are playing really well in the continent's top tournament. I'd like to actually go to the stadium and watch them play this weekend against Cape Town City. And I think it can be a stimulus, not a killer. Because, Peter, let's be honest. Our stadiums very rarely are full in South Africa. So I don't think stadiums can become emptier than what they are now. So therefore, we have to look at, well, what will pique people's interest and passion that they'll want to go more to watch the product. But that's obviously from the spectator's perspective.
Sorry, Rob, I just want to interrupt you. In fact, I may concede that point because it's quite an interesting point you bring up. Because I would imagine if Orlando Pirates were playing Dynamos from Zimbabwe, or were playing Raja Casablanca or a team from Zambia, that local population, this is an interesting thing, the local population in that area would go in big numbers to the stadium to support their former local team against Pirates or against Chiefs, which would give a better atmosphere, for example, when Chiefs or Pirates or Sundowns come and play in Durban or Cape Town or PE, because everybody comes to the stadium, there's actually a Chiefs, Pirates or Sundowns fan, and they heavily outnumber the locals. So you could have more of a rivalry. You could have more people coming to the game, for one, and B, you could have a better rivalry because there are genuine fans from those countries actually desperate for their team to win away from home, kind of thing. So as much as on that point, I think I'd concede to you. You got me on that one.
Okay, okay, and Peter, and then just from the perspective of creating a focused and targeted shop window, I mean, I'd actually go with a 32 team Champions League, divided into two sections of 16, and played home and away 30 games, and then a final sort of top four from each playing on a knockout basis. Okay, because why? Because from a selfish South African perspective, I'd want as many South African teams as possible playing in this league, right? Because that's how, we've already discussed the leagues come down from 18 clubs to 16 clubs. Why? Because not enough quality owners, not enough quality teams. We're sitting at 16. Ownership levels of standards have dropped. We've discussed that. Probably we'd need to really put out a quality 14-team league. Would be more to the point. Right. So therefore, in a 14-team league, you want, if you can get 5 teams playing on a regular basis against high-level opposition, then at the end of the day, I think more teams with more players are getting more experience and more development, and are being more exposed to that shop window of scouting where it's organized. Scouts come from Europe, they know, okay, we go there, it's Champions League, there's minimum standards on quality of stadium. If it's midweek, there must be floodlights. If the club can't deliver that kind of spectator experience, it's not allowed to get a license to play in the Super League that year. So it's all about sort of raising those standards and creating that focused, concentrated effort on the shop window. And from there, I think that then could lead to more players going into Europe, to be honest.
Do you think, Rob, do you think that there would be enough money in that Super League for players, African players who played most of their careers in Europe, say, okay, you know what, now there's an opportunity for me. I could come back to Africa and play in the Super League as opposed to going to the American League or China, which a lot of them have been going to. I mean, let's use Sadio Mane as an example. When he finishes his career if a top team, I'm not sure the top team in Senegal, but if they were a big team and they're part of the Super League, he may well think, well, hang on, let me spend my last 2-3 years playing in Africa. And you could find, can you imagine if the Drogbas instead of in their day and the Essiens, instead of going to the United States, came and played here? It would be a massive, massive benefit for African football. Just the experience.
Well, that was Benny McCarthy's dream when he came and finished his career off at Orlando Pirates. He'd won a Champions League in Europe. He really wanted to win one in Africa. Yeah. And that, so, and you get to that level of earnings and you play to that level of the game, you don't come back for the money. You come back for the emotional tie and the emotional challenge. But it's in the name of Champions League, that word Champions League is a brand, and it resonates with quality. It doesn't matter what continent you're on, and also, Peter, I think that a concentration of a good tournament, providing good fixtures, continental based, will help the African Champions League attract global sponsors. You know, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, they would want to be involved because this is a continental-wide thing, but that has more than just a group stage of 4 games and then straight into knockout. This has got far more product. There's more product on the shelf to link my product with that footballing product. You know, there's more games.
I agree with you there. Tell me though, Rob, why, if you were Chiefs, if I was Chiefs, Pirates, or Sundowns, I'd be going, well, listen, the rest of Africa's leagues are pretty poor, besides Morocco, as I understand this, and this is a statement that I shouldn't be saying because I don't know the leagues that well. I'm only going on hearsay, what I hear from South African club bosses in particular. But besides the top other leagues like the Egyptian League, Tunisian League, and the Moroccan League, the argument is that, well, these other leagues aren't good enough. They've got nothing to lose. It would benefit them to be in the Super League. But South Africa's got, we claim to have one of the most organized and wealthiest leagues in the world. We don't need this, and we've got a good enough league as it is.
Exactly. So we're not saying it should affect the league in any way. We're talking about a midweek African Champions Super League.
Right.
So we're not talking about affecting weekend football. Weekend football continues to move forward, and by having 14 teams, let's say instead of 16, at the end of the day, you're creating a couple more match day weekends to fit in whatever cup competitions may have needed a midweek fixture or whatever it might have been, you know. So right. you're segmenting your calendar. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is continental league football. Weekends is your national league, and in the early stages of let's say a Nedbank Cup or whatever that may be, that wouldn't involve the elite PSL teams.
Yeah,
those fixtures could be scheduled midweek as well if you needed to the extra capacity. You know,
the one thing that would be, if you look at it, Sundowns right now have 2 teams that could play in the Champions League and a team that could play equally as well in a PSL weekend league as well. Interesting thing, what it could do for teams like Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns, it could open up a place where you can play a lot more youngsters in your PSL team, and they'd be gaining a hell of a lot of experience. And the guys that are doing it at that level could actually then get promoted to your let's call it your Champions League team. Yeah. The biggest thing is, you know, the other point I'm concerned about in this Champions League story is that what's the guarantee?
Super League, not a Champions League necessarily.
I'm sorry,
Super League.
One of the Champions League. The Super League is the guarantee that clubs would need to know this thing's got enough finance to carry it through for 5 to 10 years, because you know you don't want to commit to something that could fail. And you know, do you think there's money in there to guarantee sponsorship money to guarantee it for 5 to 10 years? I mean, you know that.
A good question. But you're shopping with the world's blue chip companies, because you're providing a continent-wide product for them to link themselves to. So why wouldn't Coca-Cola want to have a place at the table for the continent's biggest event certainly for the next 8 to 10 years? Why wouldn't they want to be? And these kinds of guys, you find 10 of them paying a premium price, because you will find 10 who are prepared to pay a premium price. You've got your TV rights locked in for, well, you don't want to do TV rights for too long because values keep moving up. So you don't want to do that for too long. But you tie your initial first 5-year deal in place, and you suddenly I got no doubt the finances will be there, no doubt.
Yeah, I think, if you look at it as well from international sponsors, Africa's got one of the youngest continents, youngest populations in the world. And so it's a massive market for big firms. And the only thing that can unify it is football. So from a commercial point of view, it's probably got more chance of success than most. And here's an interesting thing. The NBA is coming into Africa in a big time. And if African football doesn't up their game, and I'm talking about from an organizational point of view and a marketing point of view, NBA can make big inroads. And if they have a national, not a national, a continental super league of NBA, it'll take, that's attacking the football market. And the football market's got to think a lot bigger picture, as opposed to, keep looking after just South Africa, looking after South Africa, and Southern looking after Southern, Northern looking after Northern. I think Africa's got to unite in football and make decisions that benefits African football as a whole. United we stand, united you're bigger. But I think what I'd really like is to invite all the guys who watch this. This is a topic that's not going to end. It's going to go on. We just touched the surface. We haven't even touched the surface of this topic, and there's a lot more. So please tweet me, send me your questions, and Rob and I will have a proper look at it. Rob's clearly for it. I've got a foot in both camps, and I'm not trying to sit on the fence here. I'm not. Part of me loves the idea, and the other part of me says, I'm not so sure. Maybe we need a bit more information from Patrice Motsepe, and maybe we can try and get Patrice on you and have a proper chat about the Super League. But thanks, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and Rob and I'll be back soon. I promise you. Cheers, guys. Bye.